The castle air was heavy with tension. Guards stood along the polished stone walls, their armor glowing faintly under the soft blue lights of the royal hall. High above, crystal vines hung from the ceiling, each one humming quietly alive. The court of the Varellan Empire was beautiful, but cold. Every step echoed like a warning. Jonathan Blake stood near the edge of the throne room. A human, tall, rough-featured, with worn boots and a coat that had clearly seen battle. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. He didn't belong here, and he knew it. Around him, alien nobles whispered, "He's a human? A pet, maybe? No, the princess would never." Jonathan didn't react. He kept his eyes forward, standing just behind Princess Asera, daughter of Queen Virel. Asera was radiant. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on silver water, and her long white hair flowed down her back like strands of silk. She wore royal robes, stitched with stars, but her expression was steel beneath beauty. She didn't hide Jonathan behind her. She stood at his side, proud and open. Queen finally rose from her crystal throne. The sound of her voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. "Who is that beside you?" Asera's voice rang out clearly. "My husband," she said. "He's human." Silence fell across the chamber. The nobles froze. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. The queen didn't blink. Her face was carved in stone. "You dare bring a human into my court as your mate?" Asera didn't step back. "I do more than bring him. I choose him as husband, as partner, as equal." Jonathan watched the queen's expression closely. This was more than disapproval. This was anger. But behind it, he also saw something else. Fear. He didn't understand all of it yet. But he would. Because none of this started here. It began weeks ago, on a battlefield. On a dying world. Jonathan had been a captain with the Terran Exploration Corps. His ship was shot down in a skirmish along the outer rim of Varellan space. He barely survived the crash, pulling 2 wounded crew from the wreckage before losing contact. That's when he met Asera. She wasn't a princess then, not in armor, not on the front lines. She had led a rescue squad of Varellan elite warriors, shaped like humanoid light, fast and deadly. They'd expected to find only wreckage, but Jonathan fought off an entire pack of cyber beasts, alone with nothing but a plasma blade and a cracked helmet. Asera had stopped the others from firing. She watched him fight. When the battle was over, she didn't walk away. She knelt beside him, spoke in clear, soft words. He thought she was another soldier. He had no idea who she really was until days later. They spent 2 weeks trapped together. On that planet, hiding from drones and warbands. She saved his life. He saved hers. They laughed. They bled. They learned each other's language. By the time the rescue fleet arrived, they were holding hands. And then, she brought him home. Now, Jonathan stood in front of a queen who could have him executed with a single command. And yet, he didn't look away. The queen moved down the steps of her throne, her gaze locked on him like a hawk. She circled slowly, speaking as if only Asera could hear. "Do you understand what this means, daughter? You bring a Terran into the line of succession, into our bloodline, into our legacy. He is already in my heart," Asera said. "He has earned his place. He is not one of us. He doesn't have to be." Jonathan finally spoke. His voice quiet but firm. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "I didn't come here to claim a crown. I didn't come here to stand in a court full of people who hate me." He looked at Asera. "I came because she asked. And I stay because she means more to me than fear." The queen stopped in front of him. Her eyes searched his face. Old, deep, measured. Then she said something that made even the guards shift. "Do you love her?" Jonathan didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Would you die for her?" "I already almost did." The queen turned away slowly, her gown trailing behind her like flowing silver fire. "You risk a war," she said softly. "You risk everything." Then she returned to her throne and sat down. No one is to touch them, not yet. A command, a warning, a delay. Jonathan exhaled slowly. Asera touched his hand. The court was still, but far beyond the palace walls. Forces were moving. Some wanted peace, others wanted blood. And neither the queen nor the human would be ready for what came next. The next day, the palace halls were quiet, but not peaceful. Jonathan walked behind Asera through long glowing corridors, made of stone and living crystal. Each step felt like walking through a storm that hadn't struck yet. Eyes followed them, servants, guards, nobles hiding behind draped curtains. None of them spoke. Asera led him to the Garden of Winds. It was a floating garden that hung over the city's spires. Trees with golden leaves moved gently, though there was no breeze. The air smelled of fruit and firelight. You shouldn't have spoken to her that way, Asera said softly. Not angry, just worried. I told the truth, Jonathan replied. I know. That's what makes it dangerous. He stopped and turned to face her. Your mother hates me. She fears you. The court fears you. Because they don't understand you. They see you as a wild card, something that doesn't fit in their perfect little empire. Jonathan sat on a curved stone bench. So what now? You said you weren't ashamed of me. But it feels like the whole world is ready to rip us apart. I'm not ashamed, Asera said. And I won't let them touch you. He looked at her, and for a moment, everything else vanished. Then they heard footsteps behind them. A tall, armored woman stepped out from the vines. She had silver skin like polished metal and glowing blue eyes that showed no emotion. Her armor looked ceremonial, but Jonathan could tell it was real. She bowed slightly. Captain Iona, Royal Guard. Jonathan stood. You're here to arrest me? No, she said. I'm here to protect the princess. Asera raised an eyebrow. I already have protection. Iole looked at Jonathan. He is not one of us. He is my husband. Asera replied coldly. Iona didn't flinch. Then I will protect him too, as duty commands. Jonathan nodded. Fine by me. But if danger comes, don't stand in my way. Iona gave the smallest of smirks. That will not be a problem, Terran. That night, the queen summoned her advisors. They met in a high tower, surrounded by starlight. The queen sat in silence. As nobles argued, he cannot stay. He weakens her name. The people will riot. The queen raised her hand, and the room fell quiet. I have made no decision yet. But we must be careful. The eyes of every empire are watching. One elder leaned forward. He is not just a man, Your Majesty. He is a symbol. If we accept him, we open the door to Terran bloodlines, to humans joining our courts, to a world we cannot control. Another noble added, the shadow families will not accept this. The queen's eyes narrowed. Let them try something. I will crush them myself. But even as she spoke, she felt it, a whisper in the room, a shift in the shadows. Someone was already moving against her. 2 floors below, a handmaid hurried through the halls. She didn't look dangerous. She wore soft robes. Her eyes lowered like every other servant, but under her sleeve was a poison needle. And her orders were clear. Kill the human. She waited outside the garden chamber where Jonathan slept. Asera had left to speak with her mother again. Iona was elsewhere. Now was the moment. She slipped inside, silent as a shadow. The room was dim, lit only by soft blue moss growing along the ceiling. Jonathan lay on the bed, half asleep. He heard the faintest footstep and rolled just in time. The needle struck the pillow. He grabbed the woman's wrist, twisting hard. She hissed and lunged again. He kicked her off and reached for the lamp. Light filled the room. She stood there, breathing hard, her robe torn, no longer a handmaid, but an assassin. Jonathan didn't hesitate. He charged. They slammed into the table. She tried to stab again, but he was faster. He broke her arm and knocked the needle away. Then Isla arrived. She moved like lightning, One hit. The woman fell, unconscious. Ilna looked at Jonathan with surprise. You handled yourself well. Jonathan wiped blood from his lip. Not my first close call. Asera ran in next. Her face went pale. She rushed to him, checking his chest and arms. Are you hurt? I'm fine. No, you're not, she whispered. You weren't supposed to be targeted this fast. The queen arrived minutes later, her guards close behind. She stared at the assassin, then at her daughter. She was one of the shadow families, Asera said bitterly. They moved already. Jonathan stood straight, breathing hard. What happens now? The queen looked at him long and hard. You live, she said. And that will make them furious. A storm was coming, and not just in the skies. The attack changed everything. Jonathan was no longer just a strange visitor in the palace. Now he was a target. Now everyone knew he was important enough to kill. The queen's personal guard doubled around him. He couldn't even walk through the gardens without armored warriors nearby. Every corner of the palace now held eyes, some loyal, some waiting for a chance to strike. Jonathan hated it. He didn't come to this world to sit on a throne or hide behind soldiers. He came because Asera had asked. He came for her. But now, she barely left the war room. Inside the palace strategy chamber, maps floated in the air like glowing webs. Blue lights showed the royal forces. Red ones showed enemy movements. Every day, the red lights spread farther. They're using this marriage as an excuse, General Rawl said, pointing at the map. The shadow families call it a betrayal. The border planets are falling one by one. They were waiting for a reason, the queen said. We just gave them one. Jonathan stood near the back, arms crossed. No one invited him into these meetings, but Asera had pulled him in anyway. They don't care about me, Jonathan said. They just want to break your rule. I'm just the excuse. You're more than that now, Asera said. You represent a new path, and they hate change. I didn't ask to be a symbol. No, she said, but symbols don't get to choose. Later, Jonathan stood alone on a balcony, staring down at the lights of the city below. He heard footsteps. It was Queen Virel. Surprisingly, she came alone. He didn't turn. Didn't think you'd want to speak to me. The queen stood beside him. Her voice was cold but calm. I didn't, but I must. She looked at the stars above. My daughter was always different, curious, strong, too strong for the court. I thought time would shape her, that she'd follow the old ways, but she chose you. I didn't force her, I know. There was silence for a long moment. Then the queen said, when I was young, I loved someone not of my world. Jonathan turned toward her in surprise. He was not human, she added. But still, forbiddens. What happened? I let the court tear us apart. I did what they expected. I became queen, but I lost something that night. Something I never got back. She looked him in the eye. I won't make her do what I did. Jonathan nodded slowly. Then help us stop this war. She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. That night, Asera came to Jonathan's room. Her face was tired, her hands shaking slightly. They're gathering near the eastern border, she said. Hundreds of ships. They mean to strike the heart of the Empire. Jonathan stood. Then let's fight back. No, she said. They expect that. We need something they don't expect. She pulled out a glowing disc and placed it on the table. A hologram appeared, a strange map with a secret route through the enemy lines. Jonathan looked at it closely. What is this? A hidden path. Through the Nebule Rift. A place even the Virellan fleets fear. But small ships can slip through. If we go now, we can strike their command center directly. Jonathan stared at her. You want me to go? I want you beside me, Asera said. You're going to? Yes, you're a princess, and you're my husband. If I die beside you. Jonathan took her hand. and let's end this together." The next morning, they left the palace quietly. No grand farewell. Just a stealth cruiser, a small crew, and the trust of two people against an empire. Isla came with them, of course. She never left Asera's side. As the ship broke through the upper clouds and slipped into the stars, Jonathan stood at the front window. The nebule rift loomed ahead, dark, twisted space filled with glowing storms and dead ships. Most would turn back, but Jonathan just gripped the rail tighter. Let the enemies come. He wasn't just some lost human anymore. He was her husband, and he would burn the stars for her if he had to. Asterisk. The nebule rift was not a place for sane travelers. It was a stretch of broken space-twisting storms, dead stars, and glowing dust that could eat a ship's skin in seconds. Many fleets had entered and never returned, but Jonathan's small stealth ship pressed forward. Asera sat beside him in the cockpit, watching the readings. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, guiding them through narrow gaps between magnetic walls and silent wrecks. "We're close," she said quietly. "But the rift is shifting faster than expected." Jonathan looked out the window. "It's like flying through a graveyard." Ilna stood at the back, armored and alert. "That's exactly what it is." Suddenly, the alarms began to blink red. "3 enemy ships behind us," Asera said. "They found us." "How?" Jonathan asked. "They must have placed a tracker on the hull." Jonathan cursed under his breath and jumped to the gun station. "I'll slow them down." Isla stepped forward. "No, I will go." "You protect the princess." Jonathan looked at her. "No offense, but I fought worse." "None taken," she said. "But I was born in space. Let me do my job." Jonathan watched her leave, heart heavy with respect. Moments later, the rear cannon fired. Bright flashes lit the rift. Asera's hands were shaking. Now Jonathan placed his hand over hers. "We're not turning back," she nodded. "I know. I just didn't expect to be this afraid." He smiled slightly. "Then hold on tight." The ship twisted and dove into a narrow current of energy. Enemy fire lit the sky behind them, but the rift swallowed most of it. Finally, after endless hours, the storm calmed. They dropped out near a quiet system, black moons, green suns, and a single enemy command ship floating like a blade. "There it is," Asera said. "The center of the rebellion fleet." Jonathan narrowed his eyes. "We have one shot, one pass." They loaded a small missile, silent, cloaked, built for deep strikes. But just as they were ready to fire, a call came through, a woman's voice. "Princess Asera, daughter of the queen, I see you've come." The screen lit up and the face of Lady Venari appeared. She was one of the shadow families. "Cold, beautiful, and deadly. We knew you would try something," Venari said. "We waited. And now, you're trapped." 4 enemy ships decloaked. Around them. Jonathan grabbed the flight controls. "Get us out." Asera shook her head. "No, she wants us scared. We can't run now." On the screen, Venari smiled. "Surrender, princess. Bring your human out, and I'll let him die quickly." Jonathan stepped forward. "You talk too much." Then he pressed the trigger. The cloaked missile shot forward straight past the guards and slammed into the rebel command ship. The explosion was silent, but massive. One by one, the enemy ships flickered and lost power. Their link to the command node was broken. Jonathan grabbed Asera's hand. "Now we run." The ship twisted back toward the rift. Ilna, breathing hard, returned to the main deck. "I left them a present," she said. "They won't follow us." As their ship re-entered the nebule rift, fire bloomed behind them. The shadow families had been hit hard. Their fleets would fall into chaos, but the war wasn't over yet. Back at the capital, Queen Virel received the message with cold pride. "They made it out," her aide said. "Good," the queen replied. "Now let the traitors see what happens when they cross my family." But far away, on a forgotten moon, Venari sat in the dark with a smile. Let them have their small victory, she whispered. The true plan has not begun. The stealth ship landed in the royal hangar just before sunrise. The palace stood silent, like a sleeping giant waiting to wake up angry. But something had changed. The guards didn't stare with hate anymore. The servants didn't whisper behind their sleeves. Word had spread. Jonathan, the human, had struck the heart of the rebellion and lived. When Asera stepped out of the ship, covered in ash and soot, the guards bowed. Not to her royal blood, but to her courage. And when Jonathan followed, his face cut, his coat torn, some of them bowed to him too. The queen waited at the top of the steps, surrounded by her advisors and generals. Her expression was unreadable. Asera walked straight to her and dropped a small data crystal into the queen's hand. Command center destroyed. Rebels scattered. Lady Venari escaped. The queen nodded slowly. You've done what no army could. It wasn't just me, Asera sighed. She looked at Jonathan. He flew us through the rift. He made the shot. Jonathan cleared his throat. We had help. Iona saved our backs more than once. The queen looked at all three of them. Then you all have my respect. But even as she spoke, her eyes flicked toward the crowd forming beyond the court gates. People had heard the news. They came with questions and warnings. The empire was shifting. Later that night, Asera sat with Jonathan in their private room. The moonlight came in soft through the wide glass window. She rested her head against his chest. I thought we were going to die out there, she said. Quietly, me too, he replied. But I'd do it again. She looked up at him. They're not done yet. Venari will strike again. And others will rise with her. Jonathan held her hand. Let them try. A knock came at the door. It was Iona. There's a message, she said. From Venari. Jonathan stood. Already? Iona handed him a small hollow device. Asera touched it, and Venari's face appeared once again in the air. She spoke slowly, smiling as always. You think the people love you now, but they only love your victory. What will happen when they see who you truly are? When they remember that your bond is unnatural, against tradition, against purity? Jonathan's jaw clenched. Vnar, I continued. I give you one last chance. Leave the throne, leave the empire, leave her. Then the recording ended. Asera stood in silence. She doesn't just want war, Jonathan said. She wants to destroy our bond. She fail, Asera said. Because we are stronger than tradition. The next morning, the queen summoned the full court. The royal hall filled with nobles, soldiers, and envoys from other worlds. All eyes turned as Asera and Jonathan entered side by side. She wore silver armor, not a dress. He wore a formal Terran uniform, patched and scarred. The queen stood. She looked out over the crowd. Let it be known, she said, that my daughter has risked her life for this empire. And this human, this Terran, stood beside her when many of you would not. Some nobles looked down in shame. Others looked away in anger. He has shown courage, strength, and honor, the queen continued. And if anyone still believes he does not belong here, you may speak now. Silence. Then, slowly, one noble stepped forward. He bowed. We were wrong. Others followed. One by one, they lowered their heads, not just to the queen, but to Jonathan and Asera together. But not all bowed. In the back, a robed figure turned and slipped away quietly. Outside the hall, hidden behind cloaks and lies, Venari's. People were already planning their next move. This battle was won, but the final war was coming. Asterisk. The sky over the capital burned red. It started just before dawn, an explosion near the outer defense towers. Then came the blackout. Energy shields dropped. Communications jammed. Vnar, I had returned from a secret base in the deep moons. She had rebuilt her army, faster, smarter. And this time, she didn't hide behind words. She attacked the throne directly, inside the palace. Alarms rang across the walls. Guards ran through marble halls. The queen stood in the war chamber, calm and cold, giving orders as explosions shook the floor beneath her. But Asera was already gone. She and Jonathan had left the royal chambers before sunrise. They knew this day would come. Now they stood side by side in the outer courtyard. Asera in sleek black armor with her sigil across the chest. Jonathan in his worn battle coat with a plasma rifle slung across his back. Aile stood with them. "They're coming fast," she said. "Too many ships to count. And cloaked units are already in the city." Asera narrowed her eyes. "She's coming herself this time." Jonathan loaded a charge into his rifle. "Good, I owe her one." Outside the palace gates, fire bloomed as rebel tanks rolled through the main square. War beasts charged beside them, their eyes glowing with venom and tech. Then Venari appeared. She walked at the front of her army, no helmet, no fear, just power. Her voice echoed across the court. "Step aside, Asera. Your time is over." Asera stepped forward. "My time is just beginning." Venari raised a hand. Her warriors surged. Then the gates exploded from behind. Royal guards poured out, led by the queen herself, holding a spear of light, her crown blazing like fire. "No one touches my daughter," she roared. The courtyard became a storm of chaos. Blades clashed, cannons fired. Smoke rose high above the city towers. Jonathan fought like a soldier born for war. His aim was perfect, each shot dropping an attacker before they reached the line. Ilna moved like a ghost, cutting down enemies with clean, sharp strikes. And Asera, she was the fire. Her twin swords danced like lightning, each swing guided by fury and love. But then she saw Venari, the rebel queen, move toward her like a dark wave. They met in the center of the battlefield. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. Every hit was a clash of old blood and new power. "You think you can change the future?" Venari growled. "I already have." Asera answered and struck hard. Venari fell, blade through her chest. The rebels saw it. They stopped. Some ran, some dropped weapons. The others were captured by the Queen's Guard. It was over. The war was over. Hours later, the smoke cleared from the palace steps. Jonathan stood beside Asera as the Queen addressed the people of the Empire. "We have faced traitors. We have faced fear. But today we face something greater, hope." She looked at her daughter. "At first, I questioned her choice. I questioned the human, but not anymore." She turned to Jonathan. "You are not one of us by blood, but by action, by courage. You have become something more." She took his hand and placed it in Asera's. "From this day forward, the Empire welcomes Terrans into our fold, and my daughter's bond shall be honored forever." The people cheered. Later, in the quiet Garden of Winds, Jonathan and Asera stood alone. She looked at him, smiling softly. "We did it." He held her hand. "Together." Then the Queen joined them. For once, no guards, no crown. Just a mother. She placed a hand on both their shoulders. "Whatever comes next," she said, "you face it side by side." And as the twin moons rose high, the stars above the Empire glowed, just a little brighter, because love had changed a world. And one human had stood strong enough to shape the future.